This time, I'm going to open the microphones up for you to ask questions. I've recently started delving into the research on creativity, and one of the things that I found out is that individuals who are most creative tend to say as much as possible in as concise a manner as possible. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to try and make your comments or ask your questions in as concise a fashion as possible, and as short as possible. And additionally, I'm going to ask the panel to remain seated, so as you ask questions, they can just grab a microphone and address each question as it arises. Okay? I'll stay here and try and get the questions.
My name is Ulrich Hippolyte, as the Americans call me, Hippolyte in Trinidad and Tobago. I am a former General Secretary of the People's National Movement. The question that I have, any member of the panel can answer, but I think Clem London might be the person, because he touched very nicely and eloquently on the subject of education in Trinidad. We have enjoyed secondary education for some years. It was brought in by the People's National Movement through Dr. Williams. And the question is, what in your view has been the impact of free secondary education in Trinidad on Trinidad and Tobago society, economically and particularly socially, in the 90s?
Well, Ulrich, in as much as you pose a question to me, I'll try to do the best I can. Well, first I'd like to say that I sit here as a person looking at education. And therefore I would say that secondary education has created in Trinidad a very literate society. We have one of the most literate reading publics in the Caribbean, and that may be true to say in the Western Hemisphere. We have more newspapers, more weeklies, more publications than very many other places. So that the issue of literacy is very profound there. It has created also a kind of awareness and preparation for what Eric Williams had perceived that as was necessary for taking the country along an industrial path. That is to say, that in order to meet the exigencies of a developing country using the technology and other resources to the fullest, that there had to be in place a literate society. And the secondary education helped to create that, so that that spilled over into his other dream, which was to have a university, a Caribbean university of, by, and for the people, run by the people. The extension at St. Augustine helped that. And giving or making education free, secondary education free, allowed the transition to go from primary to secondary to tertiary, which meant that people were able to go back to filter into jobs like engineers in the oil industry, coming from the university, into agriculture, into private and public sectors, so that in large measure that educational effort has its blessing. Of course, there is also the flip side of that, which is overproduction, because there came a time when we had lots of people with their high school diplomas and their university degrees who couldn't find jobs. But in good old-fashioned of the Caribbean in general and Trinidad in particular, we exported people. People left Trinidad and went to other small islands and helped. I know of somebody who got her bachelor's in science from UWI and went to Montserrat, where she is now very much engaged in carrying the mission. So that while it didn't seem so good for Trinidad to have a superabundance of prepared people and no place to absorb them fully, they were able to go elsewhere. You look around the United States, and people from the Caribbean, in general, Trinidad in particular, are everywhere. You don't see them, but they're there. Two sit here right now.
There's another side of that question I would like to address. Social barriers were broken down with the free secondary education. I worked as principal of Rio Claro Secondary, and there were students who came there from homes that would not have seen a child going to secondary school. This is a very important change that the Williams idea brought to Trinidad. There are people here now who have come up, having passed CXC examinations, that are entering City University of New York and doing well, as a matter of fact, coming out at the top of their classes. They would never have seen a university had it not been for this free secondary education level. There is an understanding within the island. I've gone back there several times. Yes, about 4 weeks that I had a chance to talk to some young people there. And when they tell you, they're looking forward to reaching out. You see, I grew up in a time when anybody got to QRC and NAPREM or presentation, you were thinking scholarship. If you got a scholarship, fine, and you waited to hear what's going to happen to that guy in 4 or 5 years. Nobody's thinking of anything else. And if you didn't make in that, you didn't get to QRC, you didn't get to presentation, you didn't get to NAPREM. Well, I wouldn't talk about it. Because they got anyhow. They always got things. They always, their fathers always did something. The breadwinners are supposed to be the men. I'm not being chauvinistic.
We will address them.
We will address that as well. With the booklet, I was saying that men are the responsible persons. And if anybody must get the best to the top education, to get the best service, they should do it. I could be wrong, I've made a lot of mistakes in my life.
We will close it. Okay. I just want to remind everyone that for those who may not want to come up here and ask a question, they can utilize the yellow card in the booklets there, and they can write the questions down, and I'll be happy to read it out for anyone on the panel.
That's it. If Mr. Pat will just give me 1 minute. I think as a person who was involved in education in Trinidad, I should probably make one brief comment. I think the question is fair, but unfair. Because I think you're asking a question which seeks to look at circumstances that have changed over time, especially financial circumstances. Now, in terms of the quality of education, I think that we have probably within Trinidad the largest group of the best qualified people at the high school level, given the fallouts and the breakdown of some of the schools, but in general we do not have the resources, and I think if, and I don't like to use if, but if Williams were alive, or if he had control, the University of the West Indies would not have been in the trouble which it is. It would not lose many of its most famous and better staff members and students. So that in a sense he had done the groundwork. But I'm not sure that the actors have, in a sense, maintained the groundwork. And I think he had a problem there with the church and a sense of hierarchy that exists within certain aspects of Trinidad society.
Well, I think Dr. Carrington has pretty well addressed one of the points I was going to make in the light of the question that I heard, because I was going to address it from the standpoint of someone who had served in the cabinet under Dr. Williams and as education minister under his successor. And basically what I would say is that what the free education did was it had both a qualitative and a quantitative impact. The qualitative consideration was virtually, and I think you would know about this, moving a primary school teaching system from a substantial number of untrained teachers to one which became an almost completely trained teaching profession at the primary level. Then at the secondary level, this is where, in a sense, one of our major problems came in. Under the plan that you were preparing for, that was a plan that sought to give the entire school population secondary education up to junior secondary level, and about 37 to 40% would have gone beyond the 5 and 7 years. But the population did not want that. And the change took place in the 70s. It coincided with the affluence of Trinidad and Tobago under the oil revenue, so that sums that the building of schools that would have had to be done to accommodate, and I'm talking now about secondary schools beyond 3 years of secondary education, the number of schools that you would have required for dealing with 37 to 40% of that age group suddenly had to be increased because the population insisted that everybody must get 5-7 years of secondary education. That created a problem that gave rise to some of the quality implications that we are still working out today, because the number of schools that had to be built under the original plan, one was thinking in terms of vocational and technical education and academic education. We had to scrap that in, modify that perhaps I should say. And the vast increase in trained teachers for what eventually developed left its mark on the system. And when I jump into the university, I think I agree very definitely with Dr. Carrington. The compass has been misplaced somewhat, and I think we have to address that on another occasion. But thank you.
I have 3 basic questions, so I'll ask them all at the same time, and anyone on the panel can answer. First of all, Professor White, let me just modify your statement. You're saying that men are responsible, but surely you'll agree that women are the stronger sex. Just to clarify.
Thank you.
Anyway, my 3 questions, basic, well, not questions, perhaps comments. To what does either of you attribute the fact that, yes, we have a highly literate population, but to what do you attribute the fact that, for example, some years ago, it was reported that some 90% of applicants to the police service botched the examination, and some of them had university degrees. That's number 1. So obviously, what we're talking about here, we haven't touched on the general decline in the standard of education. We've talked about building schools and the problem with junior secondary schools and so on. We haven't touched on the decline in the general standard of education. That's number 1. Number 2, I have a real concern with any system of education that brands a child at 11 years old a failure. I have a definite concern there. That cannot be right. I know that we have constraints, but there has to be some other way. And the third one is, I'd like to find out what members of the panel think about the current religious controversy about the wearing of the Muslim hijab in Trinidad and Tobago.
I think there's another one about making steel bands in schools.
I was not aware that that was a controversy.
Oh, yes.
That certainly should not be. The steel band is our national instrument and it should be preserved.
Oh, it has been opposed. People botching exams coming from the university. Well, probably a simple answer is to say that we have all levels of performances along the nexus. But I think generally there is a decline in terms of what you may perceive as a standard to which Trinidadians were accustomed. It is caused by a lot of problems. The breakdown problem in sense of family, in sense of middle class life in Trinidad. And that in itself would interfere with the ability of students to attend school, proper diets, properly kept, parents, apart from being frustrated, unable to provide, and so on. So there's a breakdown there. There probably might be a breakdown in the delivery service in the schools themselves. I'm not certain that the university has broken down yet in terms of delivery, but it certainly has broken down in terms of admission, so that Trinidad, of all the campuses, is the one campus that has the one campus territory that has more students than the university could take in at any given time. I don't want to make any statement which would imply the functions of government, because I think that would raise another problem. But the general trend in today's Trinidad education system is to employ students coming out of high school at not even the A-levels, and train them to like a holding person in the primary school system. I think that's where you need your best teacher, is in the primary school, and it does not seem to be taking place in Trinidad today. I am not sure. I think that Trinidad tended to create freedom of religion and freedom of worship. I haven't given thought to the question as to whether somebody should be prohibited from wearing an identification that belongs to a religious group in a school. I'm not sure of that. I can't answer that. I don't know what to tackle to that.
I would like to bring an observation. We think of Trinidad before the 60s. And we think of people who were living in country districts, Toco, San Grande, Miero, Rio Claro. People from those places had an agrarian sense. There was something about production, that the land could be productive. Yes, the oil came in, money got up and got out, but I'm not sure that we are still providing the type of education that will allow for across-the-board value systems in what you should study. There's a reduction in the number of technological and technical students, and I think this is the loss. When I was in England in 1961, they were grappling with the two types of schools and wondering what they should do about a secondary technical, secondary grammar, and secondary modern. It got over to Trinidad in a hurry. They began working on that. But in England, they were trying to preserve that strain of education that would allow people to go into the technical aspects and go into working not only in the fields but in the crops and so on, and to enhance the production of the crops. And I don't think we are getting that in Trinidad. I think everybody now wants to get into point of view of some industrial place and not worry about the landscape. I haven't seen the figures on food production. Tobago is becoming our garden now, whatever happens.
Garden blew down. Garden blew down. 11 plus. I'm sorry I didn't respond to that. I want to respond to that because I have a 10-year-old daughter who's supposed to sit common entrance. And she's not ready for common entrance. I mean, she speaks eloquently, she reads well, she is not good at math, but she's not ready. She still, every time she speaks to me, she wants a doll. She still wants to be a girl. Well, not a baby, but you know, she wants to play with dolls, she wants to read. I think 11 plus is the wrong age, and I do not think that 11 plus should be fostered in children. I lived in Canada for a long time, and I know there's a progressive education system. But I read somewhere before I left Trinidad that they were thinking of making the age a bit later. I'm not sure what that meant, but I hope they would abolish the 11 plus exam, because it does. Anytime a student goes into the junior secondary, that student considers himself or herself a failure, and I think that's a disaster.
If I may respond to those questions, I think there is a danger if we attempt to look at these matters in a rather simplistic way. There are many, many factors in the in the ecological environment that impinge upon each of these issues. So that while it is true that a matter of the 11 plus does point out the unreadiness for some students, we have to look at other issues within the environment. There is no question in my mind that human beings come packaged, and we are custom made. Everybody is different, and therefore some of us are spurters, some are plodders, and there are those of us who would get to the same point a little more time or in less time, so that the system has to be one that considers all of these circumstances. One of the problems about school change in Trinidad today is that there's a penchant to accept whatever comes from abroad as being okay, being good. It's one of the reasons why there's difficulty with literacy, or rather communication skills in some of the schools, because I understand that there has been an adoption of the fill-in, fill-out, true, false, multiple choice. So you can guess well, and you're lucky you might find yourself going certain places, as against a kind of rigorous attention to that. So that this penchant from drawing upon the US, for instance, and things like the gentleman was talking about, struggling in England to resolve a problem, yet in Trinidad it is accepted, it's okay. We see it in clothing, we see it in behaviors and all kinds of things. One other thing about that too is that I don't think sufficient attention is given to a very, very critical area in the economy, that is agriculture. There has come with this technology an attitude that it's bad to dirty your fingers anymore, or to deal with the land, and so that people would rather go to the point of care and other places and or the civil service and neglect the production of food. A country moves on its stomach as well as on its head. On the religious question, I haven't heard any discussion on that yet, but in talking about Dr. Williams and his educational efforts, one telling feature has been that Trinidad has inherited from colonial time a strong input from religious bodies in education. And Eric had a lot of difficulty having the long arm of the government get into that intervention, because those religious groups did not want to give way on that matter. So that on the one hand, he wants to be democratic, he wants to be free and allow people the freedom to make their choices, but you had a very intransigent religious group of people who did not want their school to be interfered with, and so they carried on some of their own procedures. On the steel band, I think it's a national instrument, but I think the danger is if we say all we must play is pan, we can't play the violin or the piano or other instruments. We should put it in there too.